Welcome back to another episode of Brood. I'm Adonis.
I'm Bryce.
I'm Jen.
And this is our new podcast. Bryce, you want to give the people just a little bit of a description about what we talk about here?
Absolutely. Our three friends gather around multiple types of coffee, like experimenting, trying new things out, and talking about anything and everything life has to offer to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So we just wanted to once again give a big shout out to all of our listeners out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for commenting. We love all that feedback, so make sure you guys keep it coming. We hopefully have another super fun episode in store for you guys today. Before we get into our main discussion, though, we're going to talk about the coffee that we're drinking. So today we went with something that I feel like is sort of a staple for any of you Starbucks brew at home people. We have the Sumatra Dark Roast from Starbucks. It is an earthy and herbal blend. It's a single origin. Whole bean Arabica coffee. So yeah, I feel like this is definitely one of like Starbucks go-to dark roast. It's definitely one of my favorites that I've had.
It's good. I enjoy it a lot.
Herbaceous.
Is this one herbaceous?
It's earthy and herbal. Is herbaceous?
Oh yeah,
herbal?
yeah. No, it is.
Yeah.
Her favorite word of the week still.
Yeah. What do we think about this roast, guys?
So we did this roast as a pour over, and I've had this roast as a drip coffee. And with the drip coffee, I enjoyed a lot. We did it as a pour over, and I think we decided we measured things a little funky.
Yes.
So it kind of turned out a bit more bitter than I'm used to it tasting when I do it with the drip coffee. I think that came down to our measurements, not the coffee itself.
Our conspiracy theory is that the coffee companies are trying to make us use more grounds so that we buy more.
Listen, I'm going to throw this out there,
nasty.
too. If anybody out there grinds and brews their own coffee at home and you have like a go-to measurement for yourself, because there's like a ton of conflicting reports online, so if you have one that you like, please write in and let us know, because I would love to just have a basic measurement ratio to use to brew coffee.
I feel like everybody just puts in, just throws
it in.
Says that
there has to be
go.
like a correct ratio, right?
I mean, we've found a couple correct rates. I mean, we watched that video where she has her own special measurements, one for the bean and for the water.
Yeah.
And then I know myself, I found what I like with dark roast when I do drip coffee, and that is like I'll do a tablespoon of grind with per cup of coffee or a cup of water for the coffee, and then I'll add one more at the end. So I'll do one per and then add one. And that seems to be great. But then, of course, all the bags of coffee we ever see say you should do 2 tablespoons for a cup. But whenever I do that, it comes out bitter, and I don't know.
I generally use the 2 tablespoons per cup when I'm brewing at home. But this doesn't taste like anything I've ever had. But we also did a weird like conversion from like we didn't know how much water to use because we didn't weigh the water. We just used the volume measurement. I don't know. It ended up being a little bit of a mess.
System.
Oh, yeah. So we also had a conversation between ourselves earlier, and we were talking a little bit about hot coffee versus iced coffee. Jen actually brought up a distinction that you made about it. You said hot coffee. You put it in our messenger chat. What did you say exactly? You said iced coffee. I remember iced coffee gives me life is what the quote was.
Because you're supposed to brew it twice? Is that what you were saying?
Oh, well, that's when if you make it at home, like you would brew.
Home brew of iced coffee. Okay.
But what I meant was like warm coffee. I mean, hot coffee makes me feel warm. I could have a chat with it.
Auto meditates you, kind of just like soothes you.
Yeah, exactly. Even though like the caffeine does the opposite, I guess. But does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I mean, something warm. It's like drinking a warm,
connected,
a warm like hot cocoa or anything warm. It like it soothes your body. Whereas if you drink something cold, it jumpstarts your system. I mean, that's why you drink a nice cold beverage.
I get super hyper.
So, are you saying like warm coffee is for pleasure?
Oh yeah,
iced coffee. So
warm coffee, I would when I have time, like when I'm gonna sit here and talk to you guys. Yeah, I'll taste the cup of coffee and enjoy it. But if I'm just like on the go or I'm gonna start a shift, then I'm like, I just chug iced coffee. Love it.
Yeah, because it gives you that cold gives you the jump start. 'Cause it's the same thing as when you're taking a shower. When you take a cold shower, it's going to jump start your whole body versus taking a hot shower relaxes you and soothes you. And
I've never thought about it that way. That's interesting. But I guess that applies, yeah. I don't know. I generally always try to go for hot coffee. But I guess if I'm in a rush and I know I need to get the coffee down, I'll go for something cold because I know I need the caffeine like right away. But yeah, if I want to actually enjoy the coffee, I tend to go for hot coffee.
Yeah.
Because like I said before, like I'm an Americano guy, generally speaking. So like iced Americanos are a thing.
Yeah.
But
I have them all the time.
yeah, I just feel like Americanos
When
are
pumpkin
supposed to be
spice
hot.
comes out, I'm gonna have a pumpkin spice Americano with cream.
So do you guys have a preference generally? Like if you could only pick one for the rest of your life, would you be a hot coffee or a cold coffee?
hot coffee, for
I'd
sure.
say iced.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like there's like it's basically the same thing. But if I'm gonna add sugar and fun things to it, I feel like iced is just better. Maybe I'm basic.
You are the barista, so I guess you know more than we do. I would go with
really.
hot too. Like I think I would go with hot. Something about like a hot cup of coffee just it has more appeal to me.
Yeah,
Man.
even in the summer, even though I'm not a fan of heat, like even in the summer, I will choose a hot cup of coffee.
You know,
Versus an iced
people.
coffee.
Older people like hot coffee.
Oh yikes!
No, I'm just
Showing our age.
Whoa.
The 30-year-olds like their hot coffee.
Let's conduct an experiment.
Yes.
You guys tell us what you like and your age.
Social Security, bank card.
Credit card number.
Speaking of which, though, we are going to put a poll up on the Instagram and the Facebook. So we do want to hear if you guys prefer your coffee hot or iced. It might be that it's an age thing. Like that's a good point.
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Like frappuccinos are children.
Dang.
Iced lattes are young adults, teens. And then hot, just black coffee is old people.
You know, I had a frappuccino the other day, and I was like, not the other day. This was like 2 months ago. Every time has no meaning anymore. So I was like, you know what? But I need like real caffeine. For some reason, every time I get a frappuccino, I'm like, there's no real coffee in this. Like, I need something that's actually coffee, even though I know that's not true. I'm sure like the base for it is a coffee based thing. But I was like, I need some real coffee, so I got it, and I went in and I was like, hey, what can you do for me to give me like real coffee with this? And they were like, oh, we can do an affogato shot where they pour the espresso shot on top of like the whipped cream, and then it's like an actual shot
I
of
like
espresso
that.
in your coffee.
Sometimes you
in
want
your
that sugary
frappuccino.
drink. Sometimes
Yeah.
you want like all those
But
flavors.
you also need the caffeine, so I was like, I'm kind of feeling both, and I
Was
did
it liquidy or was it like perfect?
It mixed in really well. Like I think
Nice.
the fact that they did it and I like drank it right away. It's probably not something you could really get a lot out of if you ordered it like to drink later. Like from
Oh,
the
yeah, it would
drive-thru or-
separate.
Yeah, so
I mean, when I make my smoothies in the morning, I'll add, if I've already made coffee, I'll add the coffee that I just made,
Oh,
the drip
really?
coffee, into my smoothie.
oh dang, I never heard of that. But
Oh yeah,
that's
I mean,
With
I started seeing
Smoothie,
it
like
at
with fruit.
just with anything.
Smoothie with-
Yeah, it depends. I mean, not generally no, unless it's only like one fruit. Like if it's nothing but like fruits, it's meant to be kind of like a citrusy or a tropical kind of smoothie. Probably not. There are definitely certain smoothies I put the coffee into.
But if
I
it's
first
like chocolatey. and
yeah,
like-
exactly.
Okay.
You would definitely add it to that. And I started seeing it at other smoothie stores. I was like, oh, why don't I just do this at home? And so I started doing that, and it's been fantastic. I love it.
What
I don't
kind
do it
of-
every morning, but sometimes.
Starbucks, you can do the whole throw a banana in the coffee. And
Oh, that's
In
interesting.
a frappuccino,
In a
what do you?
frappuccino,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
To
crazy.
give you some more like I guess oomph
Substance.
to it. Yeah. But it's funny because I used to work at a Barnes & Noble cafe, and we had actual smoothies. But then you go to a regular Starbucks, because a Barnes & Noble cafe, for those of you who don't know, they sell Starbucks coffee, but they're not like officially licensed Starbucks stores. So like they have the Starbucks symbol and logo
Yeah.
everywhere, but it's just like we serve Starbucks
They're
coffee.
called licensed stores, I think, because they have like the license to sell it, but they're not from corporate. Like they're not official.
And they didn't.
They're not an
take-
official franchise.
Yeah, they didn't take Starbucks gift cards. You didn't get your points or your stars or whatever. So they literally just sold Starbucks coffee, and they had actual smoothies. And I know you can't get an actual smoothie at a Starbucks, right? Like
No.
there's no protein.
Not anymore.
powder
They're
or-
used. Sometimes like there's limited time things, or they used to have like a actual whey protein that we
Yeah.
had for the chocolate and the strawberry smoothies, but those don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
But you can definitely add a banana to like a strawberries and
that's
cream
pretty
frappuccino.
crazy. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can add anything you want to anything, but I think sometimes it might be intimidating to order something
That you
brand
don't
new.
know,
Yeah.
or that's not on the menu. You look at it like, oh, can I have this? And
Uh-huh.
I mean, really, what the worst they can say is no, and I feel like they would only say no if they didn't have what you asked for, right? They're not
Yeah.
gonna be like,
Or if they,
No,
They
goes
didn't
against
want
my
to make
ethical
it.
code of
If they were
coffee
not in a
making.
good mood,
Yeah.
they're like, I don't really feel like making. No, we don't have it.
Yeah.
exactly.
Because if you can imagine it, I feel like Starbucks can make it for you if they have what you need, right? I mean, they're-
Imagination.
Yeah, I think it's easier for people to find like recipes on TikTok and just order it straight from what they see on there,
Yeah.
which makes sense. That's cool. You guys can definitely look up
Yeah.
secret menu stuff, and if we still have those syrups, we can definitely like make anything.
I feel like that would be annoying though, to a certain extent. Like if everybody came up with some weird drink that they wanted to be made, and
Maybe you would think that, but it's like a lot. Like every other person has their own like specific drink
yeah,
customization that they like, so we're kind of used to it. And when
Fair
I say
enough.
we, I am only speaking for myself.
Nice save.
Nice
save, yeah. Cool. All right, guys. We are going to go grab a refill, and we'll be back with our main discussion. So stick around, and we'll be back. All right, guys. So today we are going to be having a discussion on mental health. May is officially Mental Health Awareness Month, so we wanted to make sure we had a discussion about this before the month was over. So if you didn't know, 1 out of 4 people suffer from some kind of mental health issue. But even if we haven't been clinically diagnosed with something, everyone has off days. We all have bad days. We all have days where we need to come home and unwind and maybe turn off the world. So that's how we're going to get into the conversation. We're just going to be talking about the ways that we do that, the ways we sort of cope with any kind of bad day that we've had. So Jen, we'll go to you first. What's some coping mechanisms that you use to even out?
So my favorite thing to do is get enough sleep. Sleep is like really important to me. And another thing I like to do is journal. Do you guys journal?
I don't. I used to, but I don't anymore.
Seldom. Occasionally I'll go through spurts, but it's usually just here and there.
I feel like it can be hard sometimes because my thoughts are just racing and I want to, I'm trying to get everything down. And I'm like, what's the point of even doing it if I'm feeling it in the moment? But then when I actually get myself to sit down at the end of the night and journal out whatever it is I'm feeling, and I can look back on other days, I can see how much I've actually gotten better.
That's really cool though, because
Yeah.
it sounds like everything. Well, at least the journaling part. That's something that helps you get those ideas out, and get that sort of. If you have a bad day, to just get it out on paper and just be done with it. I'm more of the opposite side of that. If I have a really bad day, I tend to try to want to just forget about it. So I'll just dive into some sort of entertainment medium. I go home. The Office is something that I watch on rotation, so I'll just put on The Office, and I can just shut my brain off and then just enjoy this show that I've been in love with for several years. Harry Potter, I'm a big Harry Potter nerd, so I'll just go home and listen to the Harry Potter audiobooks or pick up a book and just sort of get lost in another world to sort of escape my problems for a little bit. I feel like everybody needs an escape every now and again, and that's generally, if I have a really bad day, it just really helps me sort of deal with that, is to sort of get lost in another world.
Yeah. Sleep is huge for me. If I'm having an off day, that means my thinking is usually off, my emotions are off, and for me to recenter them, I need to just not think. And I do love the escapism of reading and watching movies and shows, but it's hard for me to focus on a book or TV or anything like that.
Oh, really?
Even if it's my favorite show or movie, it's hard for me to focus on that when I'm agitated inside. So usually if I'm working out and sleeping is kind of, and making sure I focus extra hard on my nutrition, like making sure I'm eating and I basically turn into autopilot in those days because I'm kind of, I know my triggers to off days.
Okay.
And so I go into autopilot, make sure I chug tons of water and make sure I eat healthy, nothing but healthy foods that day. And then I make myself go to sleep on time because usually the agitation will not let me sleep, but I get myself to sleep somehow or some way. I make sure I go to sleep at a good hour and get a lot of sleep and then usually the next day I'm totally fine.
Yeah, I put a lot of effort into trying to fall asleep well, and I feel like a little crazy sometimes because I just do all these basically I put too much effort into actually trying to fall asleep, and I think it's because I get very anxious, and so my thoughts are just running. I cannot relax, and that's why I have to go through these small little habits of okay, I'm going to drink tea 2 hours before and blah blah blah, and I don't know, but sometimes you do have to do those things so that
You're also someone I know subscribe to a lot of those minute meditations and stuff. Do those help when you're, because I know you do those on Spotify and stuff, or is that not something you default to?
I do so I haven't meditated in a long time, but I do have Headspace downloaded, and I use it just for sounds to go to sleep.
What's Headspace?
Oh, Headspace is a meditative app.
Oh, okay.
So you can use it for anxiety or for grief or for anything really. You can learn more about it by just sitting and relaxing with yourself or whatever.
Is it just music? Is it sounds?
It's it's a guided meditation, so there's a man or a woman talking behind the sounds. I love anything auditory to go to sleep, or just any to help me with anything.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of binaural beats?
No.
They're just sounds, but they're at certain
frequencies?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so I like that too. And nice. But the sleep stuff that I listen to is just white noise basically most of the time, or there's power nap things that I use. But anyways, I think sleep is super important, just to keep you awake. Wait, what's the word?
Alert.
I don't know. Because when you when things aren't in balance, you feel off,
Mm-hmm. Grounded is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
sleep recenters you.
Yes. So that's what I try to get, a good sleep.
Yeah, it's interesting that we all, have methods that don't require other people. How do you guys think other people play into sort of dealing with mental health issues? Are you guys people who rely on other people, or are you more I handle it by myself?
Well, I'm really introverted, but I definitely think that having loved ones to support you or knowing that they're there helps a lot. I always need to remind myself that I have those friends that I can text when I'm feeling down, you know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I really isolate myself, and I think that's what I need, because I'm a person that doesn't necessarily get energy from others. People kind of tend to take a lot of my energy. Does that make sense? Like, not in a bad way, but like I always want people to feel noticed and stuff. So sometimes when I want to focus,
drains you.
When I want to focus on
Socializing
me,
drains you.
yeah,
It doesn't feed you.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Bryce?
For my off days, it really depends on what I'm feeling off about. Like if I know it's about something specifically and I just don't want to think about it, or I need more perspective on it, I kind of rely on people. And I try to reach out to somebody. If I'm just feeling off and I have no idea why and I can't figure it out, or today's not the day to figure it out, then I go into autopilot mode, because that helps me stay composed and centered for whatever I need to do for that day, and make sure that I stay in my, I guess, routine, making sure I'm drinking what.
When I hear autopilot, like I kind of like pair it with something negative, but you mean like it helps you, like.
Yes, because if I don't go into autopilot, then since I'm agitated, and then I'm more prone to negative reactions to things and to lashing out. And so if I'm not in autopilot and I choose to just feel agitated and try to process it that day when I'm around people, or if I'm working or something like that, and I just choose to try and feel all of it, I'll probably be really negative and lash out at people. So I'd rather be in autopilot and handle my crap on my time. So
you give yourself like that space.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not about deflecting or hiding from myself. It's about staying composed in the right environments so that I can handle it in a more proper environment where it's not going to affect other people negatively.
Yeah, I sort of, when I don't know, I'm definitely not the authority on like mental health issues, because I grew up in an environment that, we didn't ever really talk about mental health. It wasn't like a part of the conversation when I was growing up. So I never really learned how to deal with it, I think, properly. We were talking earlier, and I'm definitely someone who compartmentalizes things. So if something bad happens to me, I'll just sort of put it away. Like I'll store it away in my brain, and then I'll forget about it. And I don't think it's one of those things where, at one day everything's just going to come flooding back out. I just think I tend to try my hardest to just move on and move past it. Like I try not to let it bog me down. Because that's really what I had to do. That's really what I had to do growing up. Like I grew up with, there's 5 of us as far as me and my siblings go. My mom was a single mom. She worked 2 jobs pretty much all the time. So it was me and my brothers and sisters at home. And, they weren't, we were always close, but I was never going to be like going up to them and be like, hey, I'm feeling a little depressed today, or I'm having some anxiety issues. It was, no, come home, do your homework, figure out what you're going to do for food later. And pretty much that's it. So I never really was able to sort of like talk to anybody about it until I was an adult. And I think that's a big part of a lot of communities. Jen, you were just saying earlier today off of recording, your parents sort of have a similar style of dealing with mental health stuff.
Yeah, I think when you have to, you have to survive. You have to get all your basic needs met, or you have to keep on going for others, for your children, for your, your significant other, whatever it is, and you have to keep going. You kind of don't have time to think about your emotions. Yeah. And I think people should talk about their emotions more.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to do sometimes because people don't want to think about the sad things. Like you were saying, you want to be, I guess, distracted, you know?
Yeah.
And it's definitely good to have those things that make you happy. If there's a certain song and, I just sit down with that song and I listen to it forever, I'm like happy. Or I'm watching BoJack and I'm super happy. It doesn't have very happy things to happen in it,
but the distraction is good. And it's there to take your mind off of your problems. Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's important for us to notice when someone around us is going through a hard time.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, I'm 30 years old, so I think it's harder for me to sort of open up to people. I've never seen a therapist, but I think therapy is important. So I would love it if this generation, and it does seem like it's going that way already, is more open to discussing their feelings and more open with saying, "Hey, I'm sad. I'm having a bad day. I'm just gonna like not be on today. Like I'd rather take a day off." Than to always have to put on a fake smile, go out there, you know, rub some dirt in your wound and just keep going, because that's not always the best way. That's not always the best route.
For that kind of mentality. There's
Exactly.
a time and a place, and sometimes people, their time and place is every day. Sometimes you are in a certain place in your life where you do have to think that every day, but it's not. Everybody thinks that you have to just rub dirt in the wound and keep moving, and you don't. Not everybody has to,
and not all the time. Like no one has to. No one should have to do that all the time.
No.
Yeah, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
You know, I know that that's been being used lately, which I love that, because I think it gives people like a moment to think like, oh, like, you know, it might get better real soon. And I can bring this up to someone else. But yeah, like you were saying, this generation, I definitely think they're more open to talking about it.
Because a lot of the times I feel like the whole like, and I can only speak for myself, like the compartmentalizing can manifest itself in a dangerous way. Like for me, it hasn't happened, like at least yet. Like I've never had an anxiety attack, or I've never really had, you know, a depressive episode. But I know for a lot of people who do compartmentalize, a lot of it does, you know, sort of overwhelm you eventually. And then that's when those really dark thoughts and feelings start to come up, and you're like, I'd rather, you know, do something drastic than have to deal with these issues. So I think the more as a society, the more we come to sort of being understanding about, you know, people's mental health issues and about them, you know, dealing with their depression or anxiety, then, you know, the more people will be able to sort of get away from that compartmentalizing practice. Because while I think it's working for me, I can't speak for everybody, and I don't think it works for a lot of people. I personally know people who have had those, you know, pretty drastic depressive episodes from compartmentalizing. So I'm really happy that we live in a society where it seems to be becoming more of the social norm to be able to talk about these things in an open forum. We had a conversation about this a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, about how social media has really made that even more of an acceptable thing, right? Like it's even more acceptable now to show your feelings and be emotional online and not be embarrassed.
Would you call that like oversharing? Is it like
there's an extreme there's an
things?
extreme version of social media, but I think overall,
I think if you allow yourself to be dependent on it, like if you allow yourself to be like, oh, I need 5 likes on this post that I made,
in order
otherwise
to resolve this, or in order to
otherwise nobody cares about
me.
me.
When you're looking to it for validation, that's a little bit relying on it for validation. I think that's different.
Yeah.
But overall, social media definitely allows that outlet.
And you know what else I see a lot of? It's kind of learning to love yourself. Those kind of posts.
Oh yeah,
I really love that, because I think that's like the heart of it. A lot of things that happen. Well, at least to me, you know, I could feel that maybe it's if I had those feelings of self-love earlier, then maybe some things would be different. I don't like regret anything, or like, you know, I love where I'm at in life right now. But I think that I'm a person that has gone through some things where I feel like maybe those decisions that I made, you know, they were harder for me because of my anxiety, or because I like was self-sabotaging myself. Like,
Like you didn't see your own worth, like you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
then maybe I would think that maybe I don't really deserve something and I would just not go after it, or I would like procrastinate going
Yeah.
after it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I've definitely struggled with that myself, about like just not feeling like you're worthy of something, and then by not feeling like you're worthy of it, then you don't even attempt to
Exactly.
achieve it, and then you just end up being in the same spot forever.
Yeah, I'm always like, am I just lazy, or like what's wrong with
Yeah.
me? You
Or,
know,
like,
and
why
I
even
get-
try?
Feeling like you have to prove your worthiness.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Do you guys have any like? I know this is a personal question, so feel free to ignore it if you want to. But is there anything like specific that you've dealt with like in the past that you think could help someone else out there?
Mm,
I mean, definitely. It was, I know for me, I go through bouts of depression, and it's gotten, lack of a better word, better over the years. It's not something that just, is gone forever or goes away, but you, for me, it was very important to learn my triggers and be very self-aware of when I was, or when I do go into depression, or because once I started focusing on triggers, and triggers are, for me, were things, well, maybe not triggers, but signs. I think that's the word I meant, was signs.
Yeah.
Signs that I'm going into depression. Being aware of that, to know that I'm about to be in certain moods, and because in the end, like you're going to be a certain way, but there's still no excusing your behavior if you're going to use that as a crutch. For me, I never wanted it to affect my day-to-day living. So
how do you feel it coming? Like, how do you prepare for it?
I just know it's coming. So I go in. I think what I was trying to say there, I know I kind of trailed off, was I also handle not just my off days with the autopilot, but I tend to handle my depression with a type of autopilot. And autopilot for me does not mean I'm ignoring everything and I'm completely going numb. For me, autopilot does not equate to numb, which I know is pretty much synonymous sort of with autopilot. But for me, it doesn't mean being numb. It just means trying to stay neutral and trying to... and in my case, push down that agitation or anger or self-hatred, and then handling it on a term later. Like not pushing it down with the intent of keeping it hidden, but pushing it down with the intent. And intent is important here.
I kind of do that.
Yeah, pushing it down with the intent of knowing that I need to look at this later.
But
that's how I push things down.
it's not something that I consciously do. It's sort of like an adrenaline rush. Like if you have an accident and then you feel that adrenaline rush, not dealing with what is hurting you at the moment, because you just don't.
I see. Okay.
You don't realize it, and that's how I've been a lot of times. Something chaotic will happen, and then I just get in this like I'm a brave person, and I just go through it. And then there's a point that comes.
Yeah, I call that crisis mode. So for me, so a lot of my examples and things to do with that, I'm a huge workaholic, but I've learned to kind of balance that out over the years. But so a lot of my stories and experiences deal with work, but I handle crises very well, because I'll get into the situations where I need to step up. Like this is a moment that's very important for me to be composed, to get through this situation. I'll tough up and I'll get through the situation, and then but I know that I have to look at those emotions later. I have to look at the situation later. It's when you go into crisis mode over and over and over and go through those stresses and be the tough person over and over and over, without looking back and reflecting and looking at those situations that you just went through. That's when they sneak up on you and build up on you, and then you don't realize that you've been becoming someone unintentfully. And so it's good if that's your personality and you can like kind of jump into what I call crisis mode and like tough up and get through the situation and solve it and get through it. That's good. Be that person, but be that person and reflect back on what you just did. Like see it as look at it as an accomplishment, or look at it as that really sucked, or look at it as something. Because once I started doing that, that completely changed how I go through my depression. Because sometimes I'll go through that. I go through adrenaline, or when I was in my young 20s, I used to have megalomania where I'd get into super highs. I would just get really. I would feel like the world just is. It's my oyster, to put a cliche saying out there, but I mean it's mine. This is my world. I can do anything. I can legitimately do, and I would feel that way. There's no consequence. But then I learned later that I would crash. That if I was in megalomania mode, then I knew within 1 to 2 or days, I would crash so hard and I wouldn't come back to neutral. I would be diving down, 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 and I would be at my darkest. And then I knew I was going to sit in that darkness for a week at least. And then I could neutralize back out. And those were the worst. And that's when I started learning I needed to find my triggers. I needed to find out how to get through my depression. Because depression for me is a lot of apathy, a lot of not caring, and a lot of self-hatred. And that's when I learned autopilot. That's when I learned, okay, what are my basic needs when I'm in this mood? What do I need to prepare for myself when I get into this mood? So maybe I'll prep certain meals for my upcoming, mood or whatever, and I'll make sure I have a water bottles next to me the entire time, because I know what I need to stay healthy. Because the more healthy, or the more I take care of myself during that time, the faster my mind will kind of reset itself.
How do you get that energy to even want to do that,
Well, it's, for me, it becomes muscle memory. Like we have to make yourself do it. And I'm trying to remember my starting point. Because my starting point, I think, was more my mom helping me determine what those feelings were. And because she's been going through the same things that I've been going through. She's been doing it her whole life, but she didn't start to understand it until around the same time I did. She's about 20 years older than me, but she didn't get to process her emotions and things until I started learning at 20. Well, she was 20 years older than me, so she was learning at the same time I was, and was telling me through her experiences that you need to take care of yourself. That is the most important thing to get through any of that and to handle any of that. So that's the most important thing. And she would tell me things that she did, and I would create those habits, and eventually those are just muscle memory. I don't even have to think about it anymore. I'll wake up. If I know I'm going to get in depression, I'll wake up. I know I'm going to be apathetic. I know I'm going to have these bad feelings, but my body's already moving to the kitchen for a water bottle. My body's already pulling out bread to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because I don't want to make anything complicated. I find simple things that I can do. Very, very simple things.
To have a preparation like that. I think I'm barely learning how to even take care of myself. But
but you do, right? I mean,
little
otherwise
little,
you wouldn't be here.
I think that's why I brought up sleep, general thing that everybody needs. But I'm like, okay, gotta get more sleep, because for 3 months I was only sleeping 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours a night. And then I'm like, what the heck? Yeah. That doesn't let me think clearly, And that's what I need to stay positive. But yeah.
There's structure, routine, do you think that would help? Or
no, it's not even it's not the same every night, but it's just knowing that I need rest. Gotcha. Because I'm just someone that thinks I always have to be productive. And it also comes from school, because I was really good in school, and I would nonstop do homework, nonstop I had really good grades and stuff, and now I don't go to school, so I'm always wanting to do things I don't even know, because I don't have to do anything, I guess.
But I mean, if it helps you with with keeping yourself stable, then why not? Why?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I should learn to take those moments to be okay, you gotta go to sleep, that.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question, Jen.
Okay.
And I don't know if you'll have an answer or not, but do you have because as we're talking, I'm looking back and I'm noticing kind of something. But do you have, like throughout your different kind of bouts of anxiety and depression, have you noticed it change from overall? Like each time, does it change?
Yeah.
Is it a different form of anxiety or depression? Does it become lighter or heavier during certain anxieties or depressions? Or does that question make sense? Maybe I need to explain where I'm coming from first.
A little.
Okay.
I don't know.
So
Explain
for
more.
me, so as we've been talking about this, I was just kind of reflecting a little bit, and I noticed that for me, depression has changed a lot over the past decade. So when I was a teenager, I had a lot of anger issues. I'd bottle everything up.
Me too.
And then I learned that was a huge problem. And then I started to become aware of certain things. That's when my mom started telling me, that's when we started talking more about depression and that kind of thing and what she goes through. And then, and so back then for me, depression was, it was the result of a crash from megalomania. But for me, depression felt heavy. I mean, it felt like the weight of everything was on top of me. And it was a lot of self-hatred and angry. It was a self-hatred and angry depression. And so it was just a lot of agitated turmoil of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But over the course of time, as I learned different triggers, I learned different mechanisms to help me get through it and to figure it out, it's changed a lot. So now when I feel depression, it's not, I don't feel that anger anymore. I don't feel that turmoil. For me, it's just this kind of
Gloominess?
Gloominess is the best
I
way, because it's
feel
not a
gloomy.
sadness. It's just a
Yeah.
gloominess, and it's this lack of.
I know it's coming.
It's
when
like
I wake up.
why am I here? And gloominess, kind of like everything's pointless, but it's not a heavy feeling. Like those are just kind of basic emotions that are what my depression are now, but they're lighter. There's
That's
so
how I
much.
know it's
They're not a
coming,
turmoil.
Because I wake up and I feel like, bleh, like weird. Like if you wake up from when you get a nap that's too long and you feel weird.
Yeah, that
that's
groggy,
how I feel.
gross feeling.
Yeah.
So has it
that's how I know
changed?
it's
Like for
coming.
me, it's gone from a heavy, hard thing to get through to now it's this lighter. It's still a thing in my life, and it still hurts and sucks to go through, but it's a lot lighter now. It's instead of dark clouds, it's light clouds, if that makes sense. Like it's a lighter gray.
Yeah, I definitely felt depression in like my, earlier 20s. And I know I'm 25. Oh my goodness. So it's not even like the big difference, but yeah, I definitely felt a lot more anger that I couldn't express, so it would just get bottled up, and I think that's where it came from. And now, I don't know. I think I've gotten a lot better, which is good. But obviously, there's going to be moments where everything just feels like it's too much, you know. But as far as like it being different, I don't know. I haven't really noticed or tried to pay attention to it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, because I hear about this, and I've known people obviously who have had depressive episodes, and who deal with it on a regular basis. And for me, I've never experienced anything like that. My issue that I recently realized is its own form of mental health issue. Is that whereas I feel like depression and anxiety is like an overwhelming amount of emotion, sometimes for me, I feel like I have an overwhelming lack of emotion. Sometimes I just don't care about things that I should care about. Like it's hard for me to be happy sometimes, even when there are situations present themselves that I should be happy about, or people are like, "Oh, you should be excited about this," and I'm kind of just like, "Oh, it is what it is." Or
But don't you think that is actually depression?
I don't know, because I'm not like I'm not like sad. I'm just not happy, and like I don't feel sadness.
See, it's
Right.
funny.
I don't
Like, I don't-
necessarily think that depression means sadness.
No, I agree, but I feel like when you guys talk about it, like it affects your ability to do things.
Okay,
I've
okay,
never
okay.
experienced that. I've never been like, I just want to lay in bed all day because I don't feel like I don't have the energy or I don't have the apathy to not want to do things. I've always been able to get up and get going. But for me, it's just like if someone tells me a really sad story, and I'm just like, oh man, and sometimes I have to put on a front with it. I have to be like I need to be emotional. Yeah, like I need to, I have to tell my brain, oh, this is where you're supposed to be emotional.
It's interesting that you talk about that because part of my journey through getting processing my emotions and going through all that and trying to not go through megalomania, which I haven't experienced at all almost anymore in the last probably 5 or 6 years, but so I don't experience that crash or that high, was to neutralize those emotions to a point where there was a good few years, 2 or 3 years probably, where I felt that way, where I knew that that was the emotion that was going on, and I could even see it inside of me, but I wasn't feeling it. But I was intentionally doing that because I knew whenever I experienced an emotion really strongly and let it kind of, take over my body. Yeah, I knew in the past that sent me into. I would be like a kind of not addicted to it, but I would soak it all in. I would let my body soak it all in, and that would shoot me off to like this buzz, to like this high, whatever emotion it was. It didn't matter what emotion. I'd shoot up into megalomania, and then I knew a couple days later, like as soon as I knew, I could tell I was in megalomania because of my jitteriness and my like overactive eccentricity. Yeah, and I would just completely crash and go down. So I spent a couple years trying to maintain a neutral standpoint. And so the way you just described that is exactly what I intentionally tried to do.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's really interesting that that's just kind of,
because I've known someone with bipolar disorder, and like it was like the opposite of me. Like he had really high highs and really low lows, and he couldn't control when they would pop up. For me, I mean, we're being vulnerable this episode. So like it was after my mom passed away that I felt like everything, for me in my head, it was like the worst thing that could have happened to me has happened to me. So nothing else is going to have an emotional register on me. And it's persisted throughout my life. And I thought, when it first happened and I first started noticing it, I was like, well, it'll go away. Like I'll regain my ability to emote. But it really has never really come back fully. Like I think I'm better now, but it's never really come back completely. And I mean, most people who know me, like they're like, "Oh, you're just always super chill," and it's like, yeah, and I am, and I do think that that's a positive thing, but not all the time. But it's like because I do sometimes want to feel some kind of extreme emotion,
like excited,
but it's just really hard for me to get there. And yeah, it's just something that I've recently just started to realize, like, oh, this may not be a great thing, and I don't want to be like super like dramatic or whatever, but I think of like, if let's say I have a kid, like I want to be in the hospital room, like being elated. Elated, like this is a little version of me, but in my head I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna care, or is it just gonna be like another thing that happens to me that day? Like obviously I'm gonna care about my child, but am I gonna care about the moment, So then that's always sort of worried me, and like there's nothing I can do to fix it. I don't think. Like maybe I should go to therapy. That's the point of the conversation is. Speaking of that,
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's so hard. A lot of people might not even notice that they have things that they feel that they, I don't know, like everybody goes through things. I just think that maybe if we did have someone to talk to, we would kind of understand like why we do certain things or why we put ourselves in certain situations.
It's true, because like my boss at work would always, every time I get a performance review, it's always, I can always count on you to be reliable and even headed about everything. Like no matter if you're getting yelled at by a guest, like I always know you're gonna be like chill about it. And I was like, yeah. And she sees that as a positive thing, but in my head, I'm like, well, sometimes I would like to get upset. But and again, like that, it seems like I'm complaining about a nothing problem, but that's all that I have to go off of. There is a conversation though that I've seen online and I've heard people talk about, and I want to get your guys' opinion on it. And it's something that I can't find a through line on people who are pro or against it. So how do you guys feel about medicating when it comes to mental health issues and depression and anxiety and other mental disorders? Like, do you guys feel like medication is the right way to go? Or do you feel like you should try to figure stuff out without having to be dependent on a pharmaceutical.
I definitely think that some people need it, and because it's in your brain, you know. It's sometimes it's literally just a chemical imbalance, and these things can help you, like, kind of get
Cope.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, I don't know too much about it. I know that certain medications can make people kind of feel off, you know, like not feel like themselves, which really sucks and it's really sad. But if that can help people, then I definitely think that they should try it. But I also like think that therapy is really good, and like having those like certain things you do to, you know, like self-care.
Yeah.
I definitely believe it's based off of severity, because I know when I first started in my journey of figuring myself out with depression and everything, I was definitely very against medication. And at first it was just a general thought. It was a general wall I put up, and it was a stigma I even put out there, and felt I don't remember why I felt that way. I think it was just ignorant teenager, young adult thinking, and I wanted to be able to get through it on my own. I believed in willpower, and that it all stems in the brain, but it's my brain, and if it's loose and can get like that, then I can also get through it myself. Like, I don't. And my big thing was I am not always gonna have money for medication. And what am I going to do when I don't have my medication? Just, you know, run rampant and feel like garbage until I get money again? I can't. Yeah. That wasn't okay to me personally. And then I also, for some reason, just had that stigma that medication was bad. But later on, I learned throughout my early 20s that some people just need it. It's very important. Like, it depends on your severity. That's kind of when I also learned that, one, certain personalities, I think, can handle it. Learn about it on their own and handle it on their own, but some personalities can't, and also it depends on the severity. For me, I learned that just meant I probably just didn't have it as severely as others, and that helped. That alone put things into perspective for me. Like, there's different levels of it, and of course, and things. So I'm for it if you need it. Definitely, 100%.
I think a big part of the argument comes down to people being against things to be dependent on, or even that, like, to be like, you shouldn't trade one thing, you shouldn't be relying on something to help you with something else. Like,
and I think that was my thinking back then. That still is my thinking for myself personally. But I let that thinking turn into a stigma, and then that's not good. So you can be willful, and you can be proud. You know, go through your journey on your own, so you don't have to be reliant on anything. But if that's not you, no one should be judging you for that, and you should not feel judged. You should definitely seek what help it is that you need.
You should not. Other people's opinion of what you do should not be the deterrent in you not doing that thing.
Absolutely.
No, that sounds confusing, but if you think something's going to help you, and you truly believe that, you know, then I think
that's the help
you need. Like,
after.
don't worry about other people's opinion of you for doing that. I mean, that could be a dangerous statement. But I feel like we've got a solid discussion here, guys. Right? Yeah. You know, this is definitely, again, another one of those discussions that we'll probably revisit at some point in the future, because there's just so much to break down. Yeah. But I think this is a good place to stop for now. You guys want to grab a refill, and then we will come back with some recommendations?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be back. All right, we are back. We are going to do Brewer's Choice before we head out of the studio today. Brewer's Choice is just going to be our recommendations. They can be anything. They can be books, movies, songs, whatever. Just things that we're going to recommend you guys based on our conversation today. So let's jump into it. Jennifer, what is your recommendation today?
I want to recommend the YouTube channel, The School of Life.
Okay.
I always send you guys videos of them because I think they really helped, like, me with the whole, like, introspective part.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
I want to recommend a video game that I just finished about a month ago. I believe I've probably mentioned it to you guys. I know I have. But it's called Hellblade. And even if you just watch a playthrough of it, it's, I think, max 7 or 8 hours. Just watch it in hour increments, however you want to do it. But it is about this character that is going through, that has psychosis, which is a lot of hallucinations, delusions, hears a lot of voices, and it dives very appropriately into it. And the company who made the game, they did a lot of research, talked to people with psychosis and what they feel, what they need. They did hours, and there's videos and videos of the research they did, and it's really interesting. And their whole goal was to create an experience that was, one, telling a fantasy story, and two, treating mental health with the care that it should have. And so, and definitely listen to it with headphones because it's really raw. So I will give that disclaimer, and the game even has a disclaimer. So, I mean, the voices bounce around between headphones, and it's very interesting. But
What's the name of it one more time?
Hellblade.
Hellblade. Cool. I'm going to actually recommend a phone app. I'm going to go with Reddit, because I feel like a lot of the times what brings on depressive episodes and anxiety is feeling alone. And I feel like sometimes if you have, something that you're super interested in, but you don't have friends that are interested in it, that can definitely make you feel alone. And I think on Reddit, there is a place for everyone. Surprisingly, it's a pretty welcoming community. Obviously, you have your internet trolls on there that try to start drama, but the Reddit community in general is the kind of community that will shoot down those trolls pretty quickly. So if you have interest and you want to meet like-minded people who share those interests, I think Reddit is a great app. Millions probably of subreddits to choose from. So if you're feeling alone and you need some friends, I think that's a great place to go and meet new people to talk about the things that you like.
100% agree with that.
Awesome.
All right, guys, but that is going to wrap up our show today. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you guys want to send us an email, you should definitely do that by writing into brewedconvos@gmail.com. That's BREWEDCONVOS@gmail.com.
And you can also check out our Instagram and Facebook at Brewed Podcast.
And be sure to look us up on Twitter at Brewed Convos.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening again. Signing out, I'm Adonis.
I'm Bryce.
And I'm Jen.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
As you begin to develop and expand your skills and your talents and your vision of yourself,
you will always be in control of your destiny.
Brewed Podcast is recorded in Chandler, Arizona. Our producers are Bryce Gonzalez, Jennifer Montez, and Adonis Ship. Our intro music is Easy, produced by CJ Beats. Our outro music is Destiny, produced by James Berkeley. Our social media managers are Bryce Gonzalez and Jennifer Montez. Our editor is Adonis Ship.